This is Off-Road Independence, episode 30.
This podcast is brought to you by beginnersfab.com, the site that teaches you how to make useful, interesting, and creative things with basic tools. Think you don't have the fabrication tools necessary to make what you need? Think again. beginnersfab.com. Off-Road Independence is the proud sponsor of Oregon Trail Off-Road. Stewards of the Trail, ambassadors of adventure. Don't know who they are? Stop by and check them out at OregonTrailOffroad.com. Not only that, but you'll be able to see their first 3 episodes of their web series, One Lane Road, and check them out as they continue to progress and organize themselves for their ultimate adventure. Not only that, but you'll be able to see on their site how you can help them out, and if nothing else, you'll just be able to hang out and enjoy the ride. This is Off-Road Independence, the podcast that talks about trail repair, vehicle modification, and gear selection, helping you become more independent in your off-road adventures.
My name is Eric McGrew. I'm the host of the show here at Off-Road Independence, and today I have a guest with me. His name is Wade Foxon. He's actually from Canada. I feel very special. I've been able to speak to people from Australia, from California, from the East Coast in the States, and also now to somebody from Canada. So all I lack is a few other places in the world, and I'll be set. But Wade, it's really good to have you on the show. I'm really glad that you were able to make time to come on and talk about wheeling with me and about your buggy and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. I feel privileged even to be recognized for my work and be asked to be on part of your show.
Well, so that everybody knows, just before we get started, I can't take the credit for finding Wade. Wade definitely merits being on the show for the work that he's done and the buggy that he has and the stuff that he's had. Evidently, from what I understand, Wade, this buggy's been through a couple renditions, right? Or is this a completely different buggy?
This is a completely different buggy, and
okay.
Just flipping through some calendar stuff, trying to plan my summer, and this one was put together in about less than 10 months, so it hasn't even been a year since I've been driving the other one, tore it apart, and then made this thing up.
Oh, wow. Okay. So cool. And so everybody knows, once again, I didn't find Wade a fellow Isuzu owner who actually owns an Isuzu V-Across told me about Wade. His name is Chris Olson. So thanks, Chris, for getting us in touch. And I talked to Wade a little bit, and he was willing to come on the show, and it kind of works out that his schedule, it allows us to get together. And so we're going to talk a little bit about wheeling, like I said, and also what Wade's been doing with his stuff. So, you know, one of the things that really got me interested in what you're doing, Wade, is that you're like so far out of the typical regional area of RockBouncers. So how did you actually get into this?
I have no idea. It's evolved obviously from Jeeps and quads and stuff as a younger kid, but just picking up magazines, watching all these crazy YouTube videos, and just kind of saying, hey, I want to do that someday. And then, I got married last summer about this time, and I just kind of thought before that happened, I had some bucket list items I had to get rid of, so it was time to build a buggy.
Really? And like, so you mentioned you had Jeeps and stuff like that, which I kind of figured. I figured this wasn't your first off-road vehicle.
Yeah.
But how does it compare having like a full-on RockBouncer in comparison to like, you know, a well-built off-road rig that's a Jeep or a Toyota?
When I built my first Jeep, I did a full-off restoration when I was 15 years old. Before I had a license, my dad took me and I bought a CJ7.
Oh, yeah.
It was in '83, so it was the same year I was born, so I thought that kind of made it special. Mm-hmm. So I did a frame off, just picking through magazines and stuff like that. I got an idea what to do. My dad wasn't really mechanically inclined, but I just started piecing it together. And then, fast forward 5 years, the police around here, the vehicle inspection units, are some of the strictest that I've ever experienced throughout Canada and even throughout the US. So I was just tired of getting hassled for driving my stuff on the road, whether it was a bit of tire sticking out past the flare or my bumper height was too high or whatever. So I just had enough of it, and I got everything off the street, and I just wanted to build something extremely hardcore that I can kind of go off-roading with and not have to deal with the headaches of trying to please those guys on the road, you know?
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, here in Chile, we were talking, for everybody listening to the show, me and Wade were talking a few minutes before we started, and I was telling him I haven't even gotten around to my off-roading stuff because of just the daily maintenance that I have to do on my Trooper, you know. I mean, I have an Isuzu Trooper, which is a 92 model, so it's 23 years old. I mean, you know, it's at that point where it needs constant maintenance, you know what I mean?
For sure, yeah.
So what happened is I have government inspection this month. I have to have it done before the end of June. And in Chile, they're fairly strict. Like, if your brakes aren't good enough, they'll let you know. If your shock bushings are worn out, you have to change those or you can't drive. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the bumper things, even though there are laws, they're not real clear, and they're not really strongly enforced. And having tires stick out is not an issue at all, at least around here, mainly. So while it's frustrating here in a lot of senses, I've come to know, like, evidently from you guys up there in Canada and then in Australia, it's like really hardcore how the cops are on you and the inspection, you know. So what are some of the limitations you guys have for a street legal vehicle?
You know what? There's the Highway Traffic Act here is probably a 3-inch book if you ever care to read through it. I don't have the time. I've had buddies that try and manipulate the rules and stuff like that and understand it really well, but there is, regardless of the book, still a lot of gray area in there that they call you for noise or for the size of your mirrors, for clearance lights if you're above a GVW or not. So like I just didn't have the attention span or the desire to weed through it all. So like I said, that's kind of what drove me to do something where I wouldn't get bugged at all, and I just throw it on a trailer and go have fun.
Yeah, well, that's cool. And I mean, under those circumstances, and in fact, like I mentioned, talking to some guys in Australia, I really see the benefit of owning a completely trail dedicated rig in those circumstances.
Yeah.
I know that in the past, I don't know what, 10 years, the trail rig or buggies, you know, tube chassis buggies have become really popular. Yeah. And in a lot of senses, I don't know that, and I'm not trying to offend you, I'm just stating, I think a lot of times it's overhyped and not really so necessary for a lot of people, especially like in the US. It's just kind of a fad thing that's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
But I mean, I do, I'm not saying that because it's a fad thing, it's a bad thing, because, I mean, if you want one and you have the cash for it, that's fine. But
for sure,
I mean, a trail dedicated rig starts to get kind of expensive as well, right? I mean, because it's solely dedicated for that. It's solely, you have to usually trailer it or tow it. That's the word. So what do you do? Do you trailer your rig or do you actually pull it?
Yeah, I trailer it on a flat deck, and then I pull it with a 3/4 ton.
Okay, cool. And do you have? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead with yours.
So
I'll come back to mine.
Okay. So do you have a lot of places close by where you can go wheeling?
A lot of the land around here is protected, and it's really kind of taboo. But I'm making some connections with some guys that are doing some stuff, and there's a place about an hour south of me that has a little bit of some rocks in there for me to play. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
But I kind of live in a funny area. It's where Ontario meets Manitoba. Mm-hmm. So straight west of me until you get to the Rocky Mountains, like in Alberta, for it's about a 12-hour drive. It's basically just farmers' fields of prairies, your traditional kind of prairie landscape. And then anything east of me gets into something called the Canadian Shield, where it does to get a lot of rocks and boulders and stuff like that. Lots of lakes, that guys do some backcountry fishing and stuff in, but I just haven't been able to access the land or understand on what I'm able to go in or not, and use my vehicle in or not. But
Yeah, you know, reading through some of the different states in the states, it gets a little
yeah,
confusing too, because like certain states have water crossing exclusions, like you can't cross water in an off-road vehicle unless it's certain criteria.
for
And
sure.
you know, honestly, I don't get it either. I don't understand where the limits lie, and you know, so I can see where the confusion would be. That's one thing here in Chile. While for off-roaders, it's not an issue here in Chile. You can pretty much go anywhere you want, put your truck anywhere you want, as long as it's not somebody saying "get off my land."
Yeah,
But at the same time, it's bad because there's not erosion control. There's not, you know what I mean? There's
yeah,
not any of that kind of control either, really.
yeah,
They're trying to get more into that. But for the
yeah,
same reason, there are no dedicated areas in Chile for off-road use like there are in the States either. Are there
for
places in
sure.
Canada like that?
I believe there is some stuff way out at west and way out east, but again, I'm smack dab in the middle, and we can't find any like designated off-road parks or whatever.
Okay.
Some guys have found some access to something called Crown Land, which I guess is government owned, but for public use. And there's some gray areas what you can do in there, but you can drive recreational vehicles in there. So that's where these guys have been going in and kind of not creating a trail, but there's a trail system slowly being developed in there for us to use.
Okay.
But
Cool,
it's
man.
kind of nonchalant, kind of not advertised scenario, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens if people start using it. It becomes populated. They're more likely could be able to shut us down, you know.
Yeah. That's always. It's kind of hard because, and I want to put this out there for everybody listening. Okay. Wade, I know that's kind of weird at times, but
Yeah.
I mean, this is a public conversation,
I'm
kind of.
hanging out in my garage by myself.
So, people listening, understand, I never suggest illegally entering land and forcing yourself and that kind of stuff. And from talking to Wade here, I know that's not what he's saying either. The challenge
Yes,
is, though,
for sure.
the challenge is, though, sometimes it's kind of that it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, and we followed the protocols. We're legally allowed to go in there and play. It's just, you know, trouble sometimes comes in numbers, right? So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, if it becomes popular and they see a lot of traffic in there, that's when they're going to be concerned. Right now, it's just a handful of good guys that are going in there and playing around. So
Yeah.
it's not illegal by any means. It's just kind of under the radar right now. It's like such a gray area. They don't really know what to do with it. And as long as we're respecting it, they're cool with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, everybody talks about the brotherhood of off-roading, and that's cool.
Yeah.
I definitely agree that when you have something in common, it helps create a friendship and things like that and a respect. The challenge is, though, not everybody actually respects things. You know what I mean? And that's
For
where
sure.
it gets complicated because people like leaving their trash and not cleaning up. You know, some people are just litter bugs, and others just don't clean up after a rollover, for instance, and all that gets kind of complicated. You know, and it's like, so if you're gonna be out on the trails, at least be respectful and mindful. You know.
Absolutely.
But as much as you preach that, people aren't going to listen sometimes. So, you know,
Yeah.
I hope it keeps working out for you guys and that kind of stuff, you know. I mean, what do you see for the future with off-roading in Canada? Because, I mean, you're talking about a very specific kind of off-roading with the buggy and stuff, but what
Yeah.
about like just general off-roading? Is that still a challenge, or is it gotten easier?
Where I'm from, I've seen more trucks in the last year than I have in the last 10 years of wrenching or just being around the also. I think it's really starting to grow around here for sure.
Okay. And
As far as land access and stuff, I don't know. I'm on it. I'm trying to figure that stuff out, and we're just kind of taking it in baby steps,
Yeah. So
But
you're on average, you're having to drive quite a bit to be able to wheel.
yeah, and I was gonna when I had cut you off there. That was the kind of the funny thing. I've probably off-roaded more in the United States than I have in Canada. I've only been out here probably. I've lived here my whole life, but to be out actually truly off-roading, probably a handful of times here. That's
Okay.
it.
And
But in the States, a lot more for sure.
how far are you from the States as far as like?
I'm about 3 hours straight north of the North Dakota border.
Okay. And when you go wheeling in the States, where do you usually go? Like Utah, or do you have other trails closer to the border?
I've been to Utah twice now. This again, like since I've been building the buggy for about 3 years. The first one took me, so I wasn't really active at that point, and then I've only had this together for a year, so I haven't had a lot to find out a good home for it or a regular spot. But the closest park that would actually be a good event or a good is in Gilbert, Minnesota. So it's about an 8-hour drive for me to go down there.
Wow, yeah. So, like, with that, well, you know what? Let me start with a different question, okay?
Okay.
So, what is it that you do for a living, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm a high school shops teacher. I teach a class called Motorsport, so it's all sleds, quadding around here is huge. We build dune buggies. I teach welding, small engines, very beginner fabrication, stuff like that. Just getting the kids to be creative with the skill set I'm kind of teaching them.
Okay, so
Drafting.
yeah, and with that in mind, well, I'll ask you that later. I was about to put myself in the hot in the hot seat, but I'll wait for I'll wait for that a little
Okay.
bit. So, like, I mean, clearly you're not making tons and tons of money as a school teacher. I mean, that's the reality of school teachers, as far as I can tell, around just about the world. So
Yeah, that's the thing. Me and my wife are so in love with the States and off-roading and everything that we've tried to go down that avenue just to get a job in the States or whatever. And it's definitely a different planet on the teaching profession. Like teaching up here is pretty highly regarded, and it's pretty well paid, benefits and everything. It's recognized as a real good career up here. That's for sure.
okay, so I mean, well, that's got to be a benefit because, I mean, I'm saying here in the States, even though I'm not in the States, typically teachers don't make that much, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, I doubt that you guys are getting rich off being teachers in Canada either. But it's interesting that you guys can build a buggy, for instance, like not pricing your buggy out, okay? Because I know you have very
Yeah.
specific things. But like for a buggy,
For sure.
for a beginner, how much could they expect to pay minimal for a buggy?
What are we talking? Kind of like Ultra 4 style, like a little,
No,
or just
bouncer.
It all depends on the parts you throw at it. If you're throwing some good hardcore axles or the internal goodies, that's where I found that most of my budget kind of went. It's not at the stuff that's on the outside. It's the little things, little seals, upgrades in the transfer cases, upping spline counts and stuff like that, hardened shafts. It's a tough thing. I know a lot of people through my travels kind of look at this thing and kind of the same kind of look you had before. A school teacher can afford to do stuff like this, but no one has touched that thing other than me. Like I've built that thing. I've kind of wheeled and dealed on certain parts that came used. So it's not near as expensive as people would think to get into something like this.
Yeah, and understand, once again, I meant no offense by anything. And
Oh no, none taken. I just it's all kind of perception when people
Yeah.
see it. For sure, it looks big. It looks kind sort of blingy. I don't know, But a lot of people have called me on it, you know, what it's worth or what it cost me to build and stuff like that. And I could do this and a big trailer and a camper setup still for what a guy can buy a new Rubicon for. So
Yeah, and that's what I figured. I mean, like, I've heard, okay, if you use like stock axles, right? I'm not saying like the Curry Enterprise axles or any of those like custom built. And a simple V8, like an older V8, early 90s, maybe late 80s, something like that. You could probably build and put a buggy together with some semblance of power and fun factor for around 25 grand, maybe 30 grand.
Oh. Yeah, I honestly, to put on the table, that's probably what I have into mine.
Okay, because
I'm running some bigger parts too, like.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some people get away with quoting out their buggy before they've actually built it at around 15 grand. The fact is, I don't know if you agree, but I've found that in automotive and construction, it's always going to be longer to build and more money than you expected. So they say 15, exactly. I figure 20, you know, so.
Yeah. And you see stuff pop up online for 140 grand. I think I seen a buggy down in Nevada for sale, 80 grand American. So it's so extreme, like the range that you can spend on these things. So, like I said, with my budget, my salary, what I'm working with, you know, I'm pretty happy where I'm at with it and how far it's, how long it's taken me to do this or to get here.
So let me ask you, let's talk a little bit of technical stuff, okay, about the buggy and about your build. First off, what are you using for the tube chassis and the cage construction? Is it 1 3/4, 1.5?
Inch and 3/4, 120 wall DOM on this one. The DOM, I think it was pretty much double the cost of what the regular tubing, the H crew or whatever you call it, the stuff with electric seam in it. Yeah,
and now how clearly there's some bending involved, right? What'd you bend it with?
I bought a bender out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's an air over hydraulic bender, similar to the JD squared stuff.
Okay.
The thing came in the mail off the UPS truck, and I unpackaged it, and the first bend was on my buggy, so I didn't waste too much time messing around with it.
Yeah, and do you mind telling us what brand it was that you got? Do you know, or was it?
It was a Pro Bender.
Okay. Pro Tools?
Guy out of Minneapolis.
Or
What's
Pro
that?
Bender? Pro Bender?
Pro Bender. Yeah.
I'll have
Pro
to check
Bender.
that out. I'll have to check this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
He
I don't
sells
recognize that.
CNC tables as well. That we picked up one for the school.
Oh, perfect. I'm always looking at benders. One day when I get some of the other stuff motivated and finished up that I need, I'll get around to getting a bender. Right now, that's not my priority, so I'm not looking at that at the moment. In fact, a lot of people laugh at me because I still bend a lot of stuff with the hydraulic pipe benders. Which, of course, so that everybody that's listening understands, I'm not stupid. I know what I'm doing with that. I know that a pipe bender is measured on the interior diameter, and so you can't use a 1.5 inch die for 1.5 inch tubing. It doesn't work. Well, there's modifications you can do to make it work, but that's a whole different story. We're not going to get into that in this episode. So, and how did you find the bending of like the DOM tubing in comparison to like the piping that you were bending before? Is it easier to bend, harder to bend, the same?
No, I didn't notice any difference between. You can tell it. The machine grunts a little bit more. Obviously, you get to the heavier wall stuff, where I've kind of strategically put that in, but the characteristics of either is very similar.
Okay. And I'm assuming you use like a tube notcher to notch out the tubes?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So you didn't do like the fish mouth with the angle grinder and that kind of stuff. You actually used the tube notcher.
Yeah,
that's better. It's a lot more precise.
I lived that road a long time ago, and I thought I'd treat myself as I got far along. I end up buying the software that goes with all this too, and I could never really get the software to agree with the bender, and just it was more time for me to draw it up and create these pieces. So this whole chassis was built without any software. I just ditched the software and kind of did it by look and feel.
Okay, and did you model this chassis off of anything, something you had seen before, or you just said, okay, my first one had these characteristics, I like this, but I didn't like this, and now I'm going to do it different?
Yeah, I screenshotted a couple of stuff off Instagram and Facebook on some buggy sites, and just thought, I really like that aspect about that, this aspect about this one, and I just kind of put it all 12 pictures up on my wall in my garage, and I just kind of every now and then I glance over at them and just kind of refresh my memory, and then just start bending.
Cool. So, like, your first buggy that you built, right? How was it different than this one? I mean, I know minus the tubing, because clearly the tubing was different.
Yeah, it was about a foot taller, a foot wider. It was bulky. I built it it was a 4-seater, I guess, to begin with. This one's now a 2-seater.
Okay.
But I started out, my big goal and my big sell behind building this was just to get people excited about the sport and get people interested. So first of all, it had to be a 4-seater. And then I thought for the older people, younger people, whoever I was taking out, I wanted lots of room. So I'd almost built it around taking people out and having people in it.
Yeah.
And then as it was finished, I tried to get people to come out, or people to come out with me, and whether it was family or friends, and I'm busy, I got this on the go. So that was a big deciding factor. Then I turned around, I hucked that chassis, and I started on this one, and this one has no creature comforts. My knees up around my chin, and it's a pretty squishy ride in this thing.
So, I mean, when you were building this one, well, clearly, when you start building a buggy or an off-road vehicle, you have specific purposes in mind to some degree, right? So, like, what were some of the specific goals that you wanted this buggy to really meet?
Goal number one is it had to run the biggest tire out there. So I bought the tires before I even knew what truck I was building. Originally, like most of us, we go through that awkward mud phase in life where we're... So I had bought the boggers, then I found out I grew out of that in a hurry, and I was interested back in climbing stuff and running over stuff and doing hill climbs and all that kind of thing. So
yeah, okay. So what is your style? Because, well, let me back up and preface this with something, okay? Like the typical view of rock bouncing, right? There is a straight or a very long and slightly curved, trail that you're going up with ledges and stuff, and the idea is to get up at the absolute fastest possible. Was that your goal with your RockBouncer, or was it a different goal?
No, I don't have the motor to run with those boys. My goal was just to build something that... Basically, the Top Truck Challenge is a good example, or that Havoc competition. It's 5 or 6 different courses that they run in. So I wanted something that was all around, that would do it all, go splash through the mud pit, climb the hills, do the toe test, do the rock garden, stuff like that, the coal chute. I just wanted something, a well-rounded rig running the big tires.
Okay, cool. So everybody listening, before the show and a couple of maybe weeks ago, right? Wade had sent me a link to Hard Grass Havoc, and just a few minutes before the show, you also mentioned, what was it called, Wade?
The Mountain Havoc.
Okay.
Mountain Havoc, yeah.
So what these are, from what I could tell, and go check them out online. You can check out hardgrasshavoc.com, I think it is. I'll put a link up for it on the show notes under this. But it looks like it's kind of Top Truck Challenge, but for buggies, right?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, when they changed the rules in Top Truck, where it had to be a truck themed or have original portion of the frame, it left a lot of guys out, So
yeah, I mean, playing devil's advocate here, I kind of get the limitations to some degree too. Keeps it a little bit more balanced maybe in the
Absolutely.
maybe it would have been nice to see 2 or 3 categories. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Yeah.
I mean, but from a financial standpoint of promotion and sponsor, I could see where having an event with 3 categories would considerably up the cost. So
For
I
sure.
understand their dilemma
Yeah.
there as well.
No,
But
these
yeah,
guys that are doing, they're the guys that are doing Havoc. They found the niche, and like you said, from what I can tell, I'm no part of it yet, or I haven't been a competitor or even involved with it. But I'm watching it, and it sounds like they're doing a bang up job, and it's growing year to year. So
and where's it held? The hard grass havoc.
the Canada one is out in Alberta, so it's about 12, 13 hours straight west of me, and then I believe the Mountain Havoc is in Idaho.
Okay, okay, cool. So like you mentioned earlier that you're a teacher and you teach motorsports and fabrication and
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
yeah,
What are you starting? Because if you've seen, I also have a show called Beginners Fab, right? And
yeah.
my Beginners Fab is completely different than what you're teaching your kids because I'm teaching people how to do it with the most basic tools.
Yeah,
Well, teaching. I'm not really teaching. I'm just showing people what I've learned and how I've come up with my way of doing it.
that's teaching, though. That's teaching.
Yeah, I don't qualify myself as a teacher though yet. I'm still learning a lot. But so what, like when you're getting your kids started on this stuff, right?
Yeah.
What are you? I don't even know how to really ask this question because I can't really grasp in my mind. Like, how have you decided what kind of welding you're going to teach them and when in comparison to other techniques and other styles? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the big thing is the safety, right?
Yeah.
So if they're not able to comprehend what they're doing or how dangerous it is, then that's definitely a limitation where I set. But I'm not too sure. It's kind of just a feeler. If the kids are grasping the ideas and comprehending everything and they're engaged, then I run with it. And some grade levels, some classes will go far and above beyond what other classes and what other years have had. So
Okay.
it's kind of a feeler year to year for sure.
And are you starting them out with MIG welding, or
Yeah.
are you starting out
Yeah.
with like MIG gas or flux core, or do you teach them the differences? Or
Yeah, we have, and again, like I got to hype up our education system here. The shop I run, the program I want run is very well funded. Like my budget has a lot of the state of the art tools. I got a synchro wave TIG welder, all the goodies.
yeah,
But to get back to your question, yeah, my grade nines, they do start with MIG gas, and they're doing arc welds by the end of the year, laying down 3 different types of arc welds for me.
oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean,
A lot of these are farm kids in a rural setting too, so arc welding for sure has to be beaten down into them more than MIG welding, because that's what all the farms have out here. So
yeah. Well, and you know what? I don't know if you've seen any of my beginners fab stuff, but everything I do is stick welding, arc welding. You know, for those of you listening, technically, and I'm not saying anything against you, Wade. I'm just clarifying. If you're not,
yeah,
if you don't know anything about welding, technically, MIG, stick, and TIG, right, are all arc welding styles. It's just that stick
Correct,
welding
yeah.
is typically called arc welding.
Yeah.
It's a nuance of words and stuff. Yeah, literally, I was told one time that any monkey can MIG weld, but a true welder can stick weld. And I thought, yeah, whatever. You know, I worked in a body shop. I did some sheet metal welding for body repair. I worked in a welding manufacturing plant where I was the purchaser, and I had to take training classes from Lincoln and Miller and all them. And I was like,
Okay.
yeah, I know how to weld. I can weld aluminum. I can weld stainless. I can weld carbon with a MIG welder. But yeah, man, coming here and having to learn how to stick weld I was like, dang, this is welding.
Yeah, it's a whole different beast. that Mike, the grade 9 kids, that's what they end off the year with is arc welding, and a lot of them can MIG weld fine, and they just can't pick up stick for the life of them.
It's
It's
hard.
a weird, it's an awkward transition, yeah. But the essential skills are there in the MIG, and it's a good confidence booster for them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I found that the challenge specifically with stick welding, because I like to analyze things, is that with MIG welding, once you get your settings set, you just
Yeah.
have to find the motion, the rhythm, the speed, the amount, the size of the circles and things you do, you know. But with stick welding, it's a constant 3-dimensional movement, you know, because you have to keep the electrode going closer and in a,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's eating away at you as you're trying to do your thing, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit more challenging. So, so clearly you know something about TIG welding too, right?
I've been playing around with it. Yeah, life's got in the way from me mastering the trade, but it's something in my next year for sure. I'm going to be building fuel cells and picking up aluminum pretty hard in depth here in the next couple of months.
Okay, so I'm assuming by what you've said that the buggy behind you is mainly MIG welded and all that, right?
Yeah, a little Lincoln welder I picked up at a garage sale. That's buzzed everything that you see here. So.
Okay. Okay, cool. And what amperage welder are you using for this? Just so people have an idea. Is it like
Yeah, it's
180?
a little Lincoln 185.
Okay, perfect.
I really got to work at it to do 1/4-inch plate, but anything below that, it's doing okay.
So when you built your buggy, when you were using this 185, did you bevel the edges before you welded them to give a deeper penetration, or did you just flat weld, butt weld them?
Yeah, in a lot of the notches, you don't. The beveling, I don't think it's really necessary in a lot of the places, the way the tubing comes together.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of the places, you got to do your double pass or preheats or whatever. But it's very circumstantial.
Yeah, I was just curious because I know each welder has their way of thinking about what you should do and this and that. So I was just curious your opinion on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and now, what is your drivetrain in this buggy?
My drivetrain is GM 6-liter, an LS-based LQ9.
Mm-hmm.
That's out of a Cadillac Escalade, turbo 400 for a transmission, and I got a doubler, a 203 and 205 doubler in it, and then 2.5-ton Rockwells for diffs.
Okay, and the transfer case, where did you pull that off of?
That, I don't know the exact vehicle it came out of. There's obviously a big range that they came out of. But I bought them I found on an online ad, the guys had kind of a scrapyard there, and these 2 transfer cases were there.
Okay.
I got the doubler built out of Wisconsin. Guy named Jed's Machining. There's a couple companies that do them. This one is all out of steel and everything. I know Northwest Fab Works, actually a Canadian company that does theirs out of aluminum. There's a couple different options out there.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you're even part of it. I'll add you if you don't mind. I'll add you to beginnersfab.com.
No, I'm in it. I follow your stuff. Yeah.
Okay, because one of the guys on there, Brad Blake, who was my first interviewee, my first guest on the podcast, he actually did a doubler for Isuzu, his Isuzu Amigo. He did a double transfer case adaptation, but he actually made it himself.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
cool.
pretty interesting. It's something that personally, I've got to get more into mechanical stuff. Honestly,
Yeah.
I know more machine. I mean, like metalwork and that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
and I do know some mechanic work, but like pulling motors, getting into like the pistons and sleeving and all. I don't know it. I just don't.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to lie. If you ask me what number or what model my transfer case is, I couldn't tell you. I know what my I want to say the Spanish word, but that's not. Nobody's going to understand that. Transmission. I know what transmission I have, and I know what motor I have, but I got to get more into like my axles. I think they're 10 bolt or something. I don't remember is the truth.
Okay.
But I got to get into that because it's such a part of off-roading. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to know what you're working with. So
For sure. Breakdowns, getting yourself home too. It's good to know it inside and out.
yeah. Mhm.
I thought about doing my own doubler and all that stuff. Year 2 came around for me on the build, and like I said, the wedding was coming up, so I had to kick it in the high gear, and then you got to decide where you're going to spend your time and where you're going to spend your money. So that was one thing that I knew, that they were out there and available, and it's something that would take me a lot of time to develop and figure that end of things out. So
Yeah. Now, with this drivetrain that you have here, is it the same drivetrain you had in your other buggy as well?
exactly, yeah. I basically took the body off. I think I was able even to use the links off the old truck. So
Okay.
I shortened the rears a little bit just because I wanted a smaller wheelbase, and I couldn't bring in some tubing. So other than that, like the brake lines from everything on here from the other buggy.
Okay, cool, man. And like with your axles and all that stuff on there, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, what are you running as far as your gearing ratio for your
So
diffs?
Rockwell's they come standard with a 672 gear set.
Okay.
There's actually two gear sets inside there.
Oh.
A couple, well, maybe just one company. I know Uverson developed a 411 for some of the guys that want to be running a little faster speeds, to go opposite of cutting deeper gears for them. But 672s are what are in the dips.
And then with your doubler, what are you
Yeah,
running as far as your crawl ratio?
Yeah, it's nice, that's for sure. Like a 4 low in this thing, you can stop by and grab a sandwich and have your drink, and it won't be halfway across the yard yet. So
Do you have it calculated what your actual crawl ratio is?
I will somewhere. It's not on the top of my head. No,
Okay.
though.
But it's got to be pretty deep then. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
and that's kind of why it works out. Like I said, I can pop that one transfer case into high and do all the hill climbing stuff, or I can do the slow crawl stuff. So it's nice.
Wow. Yeah. And now, how is your cockpit set up? Are you running minimal meters, or do you have extra meters for peace of mind, or?
I got nothing.
Oh, you got nothing.
There's a bank of switches. That's about it. The computer harness that runs my EFI system comes with a little handheld module that I can read trouble codes, and there's a little gauge cluster on there. But I'm so terrified to get that thing wet or muddy, I don't bring it with me half the time. So
Yeah. I was just curious, like engine heat and all that,
Yeah.
temperature gauges and stuff. But you're not running any of them.
no, I remember reading articles about that. Some guys plastering their whole buggy full of gauges, and then there was a couple articles. Maybe it was even Kappa. I'm not too sure, but had nothing in theirs at all. And
Yeah.
just another thing to distract you while you're driving or you're watching. And I never thought. I thought I'm usually so anal. I need to know what's going on everywhere, but it's worked out better for me having nothing in there.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm a minimalist kind of guy, but not that minimal. I'd want like temperature and at least like oil pressure. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you should. I'm saying me. That would just be my personal preference,
Yeah.
And
No, I think
mhm.
I think there's 4 switches in there if I counted right. So that's it.
Are you running any lighting on the buggy? I mean, I know that it's not road legal or anything, but do you have anything for personal use for lighting?
I never did. It was just a time factor, but I do have a couple light bars here I just put on about 2 months ago. So
Okay, and what kind of length are they?
I got a 20-inch wide in the front, Vision X, and then a little 8-inch single row stacker for the rear.
Okay, cool. So you're not overdoing the light bars on the buggy either.
No.
Okay.
Minimalist. You see the stuff that's lit up like a 4th of July party, right? And
Yeah.
not my thing. I want to keep it kind of bare and kind of calm. So
Yeah. No, I understand. I'm totally for that. It's just the whole light bar thing. I get it, and I
Yeah.
see where they're beneficial, but yeah, it's gone overboard in my opinion for a lot of what's
A little bit of a fad to some people for sure, throwing that stuff on everywhere. Which, whatever, if that's your thing, that's your thing, right?
That's cool, man.
Yeah, I'm running tires that 90% of the guys out there disagree with or won't run them. So it's all what your thing is.
What size are your tires, just so everybody knows?
54s.
Okay, that's what I thought. You said the largest you could find on the market, and I thought that the 54s were what you were referring to. Now, I agree. I mean, for a buggy like you have, I get it. 54s are reasonable. I think that my personal opinion is that there's no absolute need to go over 33s. You can do just about anything with 33s. But you'll scrape, your chassis, you'll scrape underbelly. So 37s or maybe 40s, I think, is max that anybody would ever need if they want to keep themselves like pretty close. I mean, if you get beyond 40s, in my opinion, you're going to have to really search for trails that are challenging.
Yeah. I agree.
There's a guy here in Chile that has a GM truck frame, right? And he has the GM drivetrain and everything on it, but he has a Nissan Navara body sitting on it, which is I don't know, do you guys have the Nissan Navaras?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. It's like the Titan.
Okay.
But a little bit smaller.
Okay.
Okay? And it doesn't have the luxury items inside that the Titan has. It's like the Hilux in comparison to the Tacoma or the Tundra. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So he's got that set on there, and he has custom notching in the chassis, and he has like 1.5 meters of travel, I think it is, or something, or 1 meter of travel or something.
Okay.
And he's running 48s or 50-inch tires.
Yeah.
And he told me that he overbuilt his truck because here he can't even find anything that's a challenge for them anymore. They're actually renting people's property and renting backhoes and digging their own challenges. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Because
he's like, it's just gotten to the point where, I mean, we can't do anything. It's no fun. It's just we crawl up the hill, and so, I mean, I know in the States, like especially out in Tennessee, the Southeast, where all the rock buggy stuff is a big deal, those guys have very specific trails that they use their buggies on and a very specific purpose. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
But
most of those guys are only running like 42s, 37, stuff like that.
So do you find that you get, I mean, well, I can't imagine you get stuck, but do you find any trails that are really a challenge for your buggy?
Yeah. It wasn't until about 2 months ago I didn't even have bead locks on it. So I was having to air the things up 12, 15 PSI, and I was really bouncing and coming off stuff hard. And since I got these bead locks on, again, a money thing, it's a whole different game. It doesn't bounce at all. It crawls nice and everything. So I'm really pumped to get it out this summer and see what it can do with these tires working at proper PSI. So
me too, man. Share some of the videos with me. I'd love to share them on my site and show everybody because it's I'm stoked to see what your buggy can do, man.
Yeah, I'm still learning. Like this thing's still being dialed in. You can see it doesn't even have paint on it yet. So, and that's half the reason the motor's out. I'm reworking it. I'm double triangulating my 4-link, reworking some shock mounts and stuff like that because it's always a work in progress. But I'm nowhere near to be done this thing. So.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna wrap up the show here because we've been talking for a little while now. So we'll wrap it up here, and honestly, it's been fun to talk to you, Wade. I apologize that yesterday the recording session went kind of haywire and awry, but I kind of think it made for a better session today. We had more of an idea of what we were talking about, and it kind of, I think, flowed a little bit better. So thanks for buying out time out of your schedule.
No problem.
Putting up with redundant questions. And I didn't mean to embarrass you at any moment or anything like that. So if I put you on the spot, I apologize.
Yeah, thanks.
Mhm.
Absolute privilege to be recognized for, like you said, I consider myself a guy in a garage with a grinder, so it's cool to be picked up from a show in Chile and be appreciated for the stuff I do.
Well, man, that is one really cool buggy. I look forward to seeing you wheel it more and seeing some videos of it running. And one thing we didn't mention today that we mentioned yesterday is that you're kind of getting your feet with you as far as driving it, because
Yeah.
it's different, rolling it and flipping it and things like that is something that I can only imagine would take time to get used to, So,
Even driving rears with a rear steer
oh
valve,
yeah,
like all hydraulic, there's no feel for anything you're doing, and to be able to coordinate that with the front wheels, it's a different planet for sure.
yeah. So I look forward to seeing the progress as you continue to learn how to drive this buggy more, and I'm sure that at some point you'll start making modifications either to this one or start building something else, and I look forward to seeing that stuff too. So, man, anytime you have anything going on and you're like, I'm doing this, let me know, and we can see about getting back together and talking about it again, because I haven't met a guest yet that I really didn't like talking to. I have to say that I've had a really good group of guests, and you're no different. I've really enjoyed having you on the show, so thanks.
Cool, man. Cool. Thanks.
Well, everybody, we want to thank you guys for sharing our conversation too. We hope you enjoyed it. Looking at the time that we've spent talking, this will probably be a couple of shows, so make sure you watch them both and you listen to them both. And please don't forget to stop by my sites. You can stop by and check me out at ericmcgrew.tv. I have videos, I have articles and that kind of stuff. You can also check out Off-Road Independence, where you see all of the listing of the Off-Road Independence podcast. And then, of course, as Wade had mentioned earlier, I have beginnersfab.com. I'm no expert in fabricating, but I try to share what I'm learning through my own errors and my own research and my own practice with others. So if you're getting into fabrication, do that. Wade's on there. He hangs out there a little bit with me. He tries to help out. I've seen him post a few times. So take that into consideration. And if you want to support the show, I would be greatly appreciative of that. You can do so through checking out my sites, of course, and also through making sure that you check out my Zazzle store. And through my Zazzle store, you can get hoodies, t-shirts, sweatshirts, stickers, anything like that. And all of that, the little bit that I make on it, goes to helping me keep these shows going. I'm not getting rich, I promise. This is... I am not getting rich on this stuff. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. So, once again, thanks everybody. Don't forget to check out Oregon Trail Off-Road. I'm sponsoring them because they're doing something cool as well. You can check them out at OregonTrailOffroad.com. And they will be at the Northwest Off-Road or Overlanding Rally, Northwest Overlanding Rally, the 25th through the 28th of June of 2015. So go check them out and get a free sticker from me. All right, guys. Talk to you the next episode. Bye. Please feel free to like, comment, and share on all of my videos. You can also please subscribe to my video channel on YouTube. One more thing is that I have t-shirts, stickers, and other swag available through Zazzle. They're good quality products, so please stop by ericmcgrew.tv. Check out the left-hand side of my page. There is a link to Zazzle there. And you can also go straight to zazzle.com/offroad_independence and check out my store there. So all of that really helps me keep these shows going. This is all out of pocket, and any help that you guys were willing to give and any promotion that you're willing to take on by wearing my swag or putting a sticker on your vehicle is very much appreciated. If you buy a shirt, if you put a sticker on your vehicle, please send me photos of them. I'll put them up on the page. Thanks, guys. Till next time, hope you guys have fun. Hope you're inspired to do a little bit of fabricating yourself. And as always, please be safe in all that you do, whether it be wheeling or fabricating. So until next time, have a good time, and I'll talk to you later.